Hello everyone, Jeff Murrin here, wanting to speak to you for a minute about the last book of the Odyssey, book 24, specifically the Robert Fagel's translation of the book. This one is titled Peace. And we know that we had, that we saw Odysseus has that promise of peace, that he will be able to live out his days in peace should he take an oar and walk inland till he gets to the point to where someone sees him and asks him, "What is that?" indicating that he is far enough from the sea, and there to give the sacrifices to Poseidon, and that will then release the time where he can live in peace. But when you know it, that's not in this book. All right, we don't really end with that story. So what we begin with, though, is Hermes coming and calling away the suitors' ghosts to lead them on to their final resting place in the realm of the dead. And at first I thought, when I was rereading this, I hadn't read it in a while, I thought, how were they able to go and make it into the underworld if they did not have their proper burial? But we do see eventually that they receive that proper burial. So I don't know if, since our time is linear as human beings, the story had to be laid out to us in a linear time. But, since we're dealing some with the spirit world here, these things kind of happen concurrently. I don't know. That would be something interesting to have a conversation about. But let's go ahead and let's take a look. Beginning on page 468, about 4 lines in. This is, a nice epic simile that we have going here about Hermes carrying these ghosts off. It says, "With a wave of this, he stirred and led them on, and the ghosts trailed after with high, thin cries, as bats cry in the depth of a dark, haunted cavern, shrilling, flittering, wild when one drops from the chain, slipped from the rock face, while the rest cling tight. So with their high, thin cries, the ghosts flocked now, and Hermes, the healer, led them on. And down the dank, moldering paths, and past the ocean stream they went, and past the white rock and the sun's western gates, and past the land of dreams. And soon they reached the fields of Asphodel, where the dead, the burnt-out wraiths of mortals, make their home. There they found the ghost of Peleus' son, Achilles, Patroclus, fearless Antilochus, and the great Ajax too. The first in stature, first in build and bearing of all the Argives after Peleus' matchless son. They had grouped around Achilles' ghost. He's such the popular, famous one. And now the shade of Atreus' son, Agamemnon, marched toward them, fraught with grief and flanked by all his comrades, troops of his men-at-arms who died beside him, who met their fate in Lord Aegisthus' halls. Achilles' ghost was first to greet him. Agamemnon, you were the one we thought of all our fighting princes, Zeus who loved the lightning favored most all your days. Because you commanded such a powerful host of men on the fields of Troy, where we Achaeans suffered. But you were doomed to encounter fate so early. You too. Yet no one born escapes its deadly force. If only you had died your death in the full flush of glory you had mastered, died on Trojan soil. Then all united Achaea would have raised your tomb, and you would have won your son great fame for years to come. Not so. You were fated to die a wretched death." And so when I read this, I wonder, is this Achilles' final laugh, his final, turning the screws on Agamemnon? Because Agamemnon got to take Briseis from him back in, book 1 of the Iliad. And here we see the last book of the Odyssey, and still there is that last little thing that Achilles wants to deliver to Agamemnon to say, "Oh, but you were fated to die a wretched death," and you sure did, buddy. All right. But Agamemnon, the part that follows there, Agamemnon tells Achilles what they did for him after his death. He goes and walks through, and you can read this for yourself. It's rather quite lovely. He discusses how they treated Achilles after Achilles passed, all the rites and rituals that they gave to him. All right, it's a very nice, moving little piece there. All right, we see this. This is part of the funeral scene, about line 58, when his mother comes. Achilles' mother says, this is Achilles' mother rising from the sea with all her immortal sea nymphs. She longs to join her son who died in battle, that stopped our panic forces in their tracks, as the old man of the sea's daughters gathered round you, wailing, heart sick, dressed you in ambrosial deathless robes, and muses, 9 in all, voice to voice in choirs, their vibrant music rising, raised your dirge. Not one soldier would you have seen dry-eyed. The muses' song so pierced us to the heart. For 17 days unbroken, days and nights, we mourned you, immortal gods and mortal men. At the 18th dawn, we gave you to the flames and slaughtered round your body droves of fat sheep and shambling longhorn cattle, and you were burned in the garments of the gods and laved with soothing oils and honey running sweet, and a long cortege of Argives heroes paraded in review. In battle armor round your blazing pyre, men in chariots, men on foot. A resounding roar went up, and once the god of fire had burned your corpse to ash, at first light we gathered your white bones, Achilles, cured them in strong, neat wine and seasoned oils. Your mother gave us a gold 2-handed urn, a gift from Dionysus, a masterwork of the famous smith, the god of fire. Your white bones rest in that, my brilliant Achilles, mixed with the bones of Patroclus. Isn't that appropriate? That the two of them, their final resting place is together. So continuing on, the last line of 470 says, over your bones we reared a grand, noble tomb, devoted veterans all, Achaea's combat forces, high on its jutting headland, over Hellespont's broad reach. A landmark glimpsed from far out at sea by men of our own day and men of days to come. All right. And then there's talk of the games that they had, because we have the funeral games as part of the custom. All right. He mentions those. But on line 100, I think it says, even in death, your name will never die. Great glory is yours, Achilles, for all time in the eyes of all mankind. I will say, most of my students, Achilles isn't the one who receives the glory. They all most of them seem to be more Team Hector than Team Achilles. I'll say that right now. All right. We see a lot of, the suitors talking as well, talking about running through, their experience on Ithaca. They even talk about, Penelope weaving Laertes' shroud. And they retell on page 473, they retell about Odysseus returning as a beggar, all right, and how that all played out. And as these suitors are mentioning Penelope and mentioning Odysseus' return, Agamemnon considers Penelope, and of course, he's had plenty to say about women, right? Nothing too flattering, let's say. But get this, line 210. Happy Odysseus, Agamemnon's ghost cried out, son of old Laertes' mastermind, what a fine, faithful wife you won. That's some significant praise, I guess, if it's coming from the likes of Agamemnon and the things that he said. What good sense resided in your Penelope? How well Icarius' daughter remembered you, Odysseus, the man she married once. The fame of her great virtue will never die. The immortal gods will lift a song for all mankind, a glorious song in praise of self-possessed Penelope. A far cry from the daughter of Tyndareus, Clytemnestra. What outrage she committed, killing the man she married once. Yes, and the song men sing of her will ring with loathing. She brands with a foul name the breed of womankind, even the honest ones to come. I guess, though, Penelope, she gets a free pass. Skipping about 3 lines, says Odysseus and his men had stridden down from town and quickly reached Laertes' large, well-tended farm. Okay, so we're no longer in the realm of the dead. We're back where we are as Odysseus is going to meet up with his father, Laertes. All right. That old king himself had rested from the wilds years ago, laboring long and hard. His lodge was here, and around it stretched a row of sheds where field hands, bondsmen who did his bidding, sat and ate and slept. And an old Sicilian woman was in charge, who faithfully looked after her aged master, out on his good estate remote from town. Odysseus told his servant and his son, "Into the timbered lodge now, go quickly. Kill us the fatted porker, fix our meal, and I will put my father to the test, to see if the old man knows me now on sight, or fails to after 20 years apart." All right. So looking down about line 248, says, he did find his father alone on that well-worked plot, spading around a sapling, clad in filthy rags, in a patched, unseemly shirt, and around his shins he had some oxhide leggings strapped, patched too, to keep from getting scraped, and gloves on his hands to fight against the thorns, and on his head he wore a goatskin skull cap. Seems like he's in pretty bad shape here, okay? And he's cultivating misery that much more. It says, long enduring Odysseus, catching sight of him now, a man worn down with years, his heart racked with sorrow, halted under a branching pear tree, paused and wept. Debating head and heart what he should do now, kiss and embrace his father, pour out the long tale, how he made the journey home to native land, or probe him first and test him in every way. Torn, mulling it over, this seemed better. Test the old man first. I'm not really sure why. I don't know. This is not how we would do things now compared to how they do things then. But anyway, it says, reproach him with words that cut him to the core. He already looks like he's in bad enough shape. Just leave the guy alone, for goodness sakes. He's thought he'd lost his son. He has lost his wife. Suitors are taking over and bleeding the whole place dry. Come on, Odysseus, cut the dude a break. Anyway. Convinced, Odysseus went right up to his father. Skipping a couple lines there, it says, You want no skill, old man, at tending garden. All's well kept here. Not the one thing in the plot. No plant, no fig, no pear, no olive, no vine. Not a vegetable lacks your tender, loving care. But I must say, and don't be offended now, your plants are doing better than yourself. Enough to be stooped with age, but look how squalid you are. Those shabby rags. All right. He goes down a few lines about, let's say, 285, and then even asks, whose slave are you? Whose orchard are you tending? And tell me this, I must be absolutely sure, is this place I've reached, is this truly Ithaca? All right. On the next page, line 310, stranger, his father answered, weeping softly, the land you've reached is the very one you're after. True, but it's in the grip of reckless, lawless men. So Laertes knows nothing of the slaughter in the hall that we read before. Skipping down to line 322. There was a son, or was he all a dream? That most unlucky man whom now I fear, far from his own soil and those he loves, the fish have swallowed down on the high seas, or birds and beasts on land have made their meal. Nor could the ones who bore him, mother, father, wrap his corpse in a shroud and mourn him deeply. Nor could his warm, generous wife, so self-possessed, Penelope, ever keen for her husband on his deathbed, the fit and proper way, or close his eyes at last. These are the solemn honors owed the dead. But tell me your own story. Down there, the last little break, it says, the whole tale his crafty son, Odysseus, replied. I'll tell you start to finish. I come from Romertown. My home's a famous place. My father's unsparing, son of old King Pain. And my name's Man of Strife. All right? So he's kind of doing a little, he's playing a little word game there. Saying, I'm a man of strife. You, my father, okay, are, king of pain. All right? And there's an old police song called King of Pain. But anyway, Odysseus gives some fake news of himself. I guess you could say that. He says, as for Odysseus, well, 5 years have passed since he left my house and put my land behind him, luckless man. But the birds were good as he launched out, all on the right, and I rejoiced as I sent him off, and he rejoiced in sailing. And then after that, Laertes just loses it. He just breaks down. And that causes Odysseus to break down too. And then he admits, I am Odysseus. All right? And Laertes doesn't believe him. About line, that last little section, line, let's say 366 or so, he says, give me a sign, some proof. I must be sure. And then, again, it comes in handy, this scar first. Quick, to the mark, his son said. Look at this. The wound I took from the boar's white tusk on Mount Parnassus. All right? So, there we go. On the next page, about line 384, it says, living proof, and Laertes' knees went slack. His heart surrendered, recognizing the strong, clear signs Odysseus offered. He threw his arms around his own dear son, fainting as hardy, great Odysseus hugged him to his heart until he regained his breath, came back to life, and cried out, Father Zeus, you gods of Olympus, you still rule on high. If those suitors have truly paid in blood for all their reckless outrage, oh, but now my heart quakes with fear that all the Ithacans will come down on us in a pack at any time and rush the alarm through every island town. So he's afraid that the families of those suitors that he's slaughtered are now going to want to come and say, Odysseus, you took our men, you took our family, we're now coming for you. That's Laertes' fear. But Odysseus says, there's nothing to fear. His canny son replied, put it from your mind. Let's make for your lodge, beside the orchard there. I sent Telemachus on ahead, the cowherd, swineherd too, to fix a hasty meal. And we see, again, while all of this, cleaning up and getting ready for the meal, Athena makes him yet taller. This guy's got to be like NBA height by now, right? But here we go. I want you to notice something. On page 481, all right, that that third break, that long break there that starts, but now, I want you to see, it says, rumor the herald spread like wildfire through the city. All right, I want you to notice, rumor there is a capital R. Okay, so rumor in this case is seen in the way dawn is seen, as in the way sleep was seen, as an entity of its own. Okay, rumor the herald spread like wildfire through the city, crying out the news of the suitors' bloody death and doom. Okay, Laertes was worried about this. And massing from every quarter as they listened, kinsmen milled with wails and moans of grief before Odysseus' palace. And then they carried out the bodies. Every family buried their own. And the dead from the other towns they loaded onto the rapid ships for crews to ferry back again, each to his own home. All right. So, skipping a couple lines. Eupeithes rose in their midst to speak out. Unforgettable sorrow wrung his heart for his son, Antinous, the first that great Odysseus killed. So this is Antinous' dad, the jerk suitor that we had to deal with for so long. Okay, but he's been wrong because his son was murdered. Okay. He says, in tears for the one he lost, he stood and cried, my friends, what a mortal blow this man has dealt to all our island people. Those fighters, many and brave, he led away in his curved ship. He lost the ships and lost the men, and back he comes again to kill the best of our Cephallenian princes. Quick, after him, before he flees to Pylos or holy Elis, where Epeans rule in power. Up, attack, or we'll hang our heads forever. All disgraced, even by generations down the years, if we don't punish the murderers of our brothers and our sons. All right, so they're wanting to get revenge. Okay, so on page 482, Medon and he's the herald and a bard come, and they have been with Odysseus, but they come and they say, "Hear me, men of Ithaca. Not without the hand of the deathless gods did Odysseus do these things." Okay, he wasn't alone when he did this. He didn't act by himself. There was someone with him when he did this, all right? And it says a deathless god was one who did it. So, to go after Odysseus also is to go after somebody who had the blessings of the gods who did this, all right? He says, myself, I saw an immortal fighting at his side, like Mentor to the life. I saw the same god now in front of Odysseus, spurring him on, now stampeding the suitors through the hall, crazed with fear, and down they went in droves. Terror gripped them all, their faces ashen white. Halitherses, Maester's son, who alone could see the days behind and the days ahead, meaning that he was somebody who could look at the past and foresee the future. So he was somebody who knew kind of like, all right, guys, this is where we've come from and this is where we're going to go, all right? He says, "Hear me, men of Ithaca. Hear what I have to say. Thanks to your own craven hearts, these things were done. You never listened to me or the good commander, Mentor. You never put a stop to your son's senseless folly, all right? You bear some responsibility. Your sons were here bleeding this place dry. They were doing everything wrong for years, and you let it happen. So you bear some of the responsibility here. All right? What fine work they did, so blind, so reckless, carving away the wealth, affronting the wife of a great and famous man, telling themselves that he'd return no more. So let things rest now. Listen to me for once. I say, don't attack, else some will draw the lightning on their necks. But, of course, they don't listen. All right? And so on, 483, about line 520, Athena at this point made appeals to Zeus. All right, so we still have Athena all the way to the end, working, trying to make sure that things work out for Odysseus the way they're supposed to. It says, "Father, son of Cronus, our high and mighty king." Now let me ask you a question. Tell me the secrets hidden in your mind. Will you prolong the pain, the cruel fighting here, or hand down pacts of peace between both sides? "My child," Zeus, who marshals the thunderheads, replied, "why do you pry and probe me so intently? Come now, wasn't the plan your own? You conceived it yourself. Odysseus should return and pay the traitors back. Do as your heart desires. But let me tell you how it should be done. Now that royal Odysseus has taken his revenge, let both sides seal their pacts that he shall reign for life. And let us purge their memories of the bloody slaughter of their brothers and their sons." Okay? So, Odysseus is going to rule for life. And let's just remove the memory that they have that Odysseus was the one who killed their family members. All right? Let them be friends, devoted as in the old days. Let peace and wealth come cresting through the land. So Zeus decreed and launched Athena, already poised for action. Down she swept from Olympus's craggy peaks. So beyond this, they go and see Odysseus and his men. They go see if someone is coming after them. And sure enough, here come the family of the suitors, and a fight ensues. All right? But we see that the fight is cut short. And on the very last page, 485, it says, in a piercing voice that stopped all fighters cold, "Hold back, you men of Ithaca. back from brutal war. Break off, shed no more blood, make peace at once. So Athena commanded. Terror blanched their faces. They went limp with fear. Weapons slipped from their hands and strewed the grounds at the goddess's ringing voice. They spun in flight to the city, wild to save their lives. But loosing a savage cry, the long-enduring great Odysseus, gathering all his force, swooped like a soaring eagle, just as the son of Cronus hurled a reeking bolt that fell at her feet. The mighty father's daughter and blazing-eyed Athena wheeled on Odysseus, crying, "Royal son of Laertes Odysseus, master of exploits, hold back now. Call a halt to the great leveler, war. Don't court the rage of Zeus, who rules the world." So she commanded. He obeyed her, glad at heart. And Athena handed down her pacts of peace between both sides for all the years to come. The daughter of Zeus, whose shield is storm and thunder. Yes, but the goddess still kept Mentor's build and voice. So all the way to the end, we have Athena to thank for everything. But it's not Athena as Athena. It's Athena, again, as Mentor. All right? So we get the sense, as always, that Odysseus was able to accomplish what he was able to accomplish only because he had Athena at his side. But it wasn't that Athena worked her magic and just said, boom, everything's going to work out. She found ways to sort of manipulate the situation and push Odysseus the way he needed to go, or the way she felt he needed to go, taking care of him all the time, but so that he could say, I accomplished everything I accomplished. And I accomplished it with the help of the gods. Rather than saying, I did nothing, the gods did it all for me. All right? And that's an important part of this, I believe. Odysseus can brag at his accomplishments. And he can also brag that he had the favor of the gods. If the gods had done it all for him, there would be very little for him to brag about. All right? And you know, pride is a big deal for Odysseus. Thank you all for going with me on this journey. I think the next thing we're going to tackle is Beowulf. So if you're interested in that, stay tuned. And until then, and as always, happy reading.